Hello everyone, my name is Jen and welcome to the Book Refuge. Hi friends, welcome to another recommendations video. Today we are doing great grovels, okay? I have made two previous videos that are groveling recommendations, but they are old, I realized. There was one from 2001, or not 2001. There's one from 2021 and one from 2022, but it's been 2 years since I've made one, and boy, I've read some groveling books since then, for sure. I do have one book that is a repeat, so if you watch those, you'll see this one there, but I'm actually rereading said book I'm about to talk about, and I was like, I gotta put it in here, because I feel like this book has been forgotten recently by the fact that the author hasn't put out a new book in 4 fucking years. So why don't we just go into that one first, since it's the one that's on my mind. The one I'm talking about here is A Heart of Blood and Ashes by Mila Vane, right? Do you guys remember this? Do you remember this? This is one of my favorite books from 2018, 2019 at this point. I don't even remember. When did this book come out? Came out in 2020. Okay, so it would have been a favorite from 2020 then. I love this book, and this is the one I'm actually rereading and annotating this for someone. It's a bit bigger than books I normally annotate, but it's a special request from a very dedicated follower, so I was like, okay, we'll do it. I'll do it, and also because I wanted to reread it. But this one is kind of sort of like almost prehistoric, kind of Viking roaming tribes. Gives me vibes kind of like the Horde Kings, but it's not. Well, it is magical. There is some magic involved, but not in the same way. And this is a kind of like forced marriage, kind of captor-captive, kind of, well, for sure an enemies to lovers. Definitely I don't trust you, and like better to keep my eyes on my enemy. And also my enemy's enemy is my friend. Like there's just so much. This is one of the very few true blue enemies to lovers out there, right? You know, we talk about it in romance. There's generally only so much enemies to the enemies to lovers, unless we're talking mafia or we're talking, you know, fantasy or whatever. And that's the case kind of with this one. So this one, I also feel like 4 years ago, this is the one for fantasy romance that kind of everybody turned to, because it was straight up from Berkeley. And it actually says fantasy romance on the back. Like, there just weren't a ton of those. So how does this fit into the grovel, okay? Well, we have Maddox, who in the beginning of this book discovers that both of his parents have died. And the cause of this death is a enemy, like clan, enemy group or whatever. And he wants to get revenge by taking the king's daughter, who he believes is responsible for his parents' death. So he wants to take her and murder her. That's his plan. Well, there's going to be a lot more complicated things between here and then. And to not get into every detail of the story, when he meets this woman, her name is Yvonne. And now she is a pretty sickly and sad state of a princess when he finds her, okay? She is actually supposed to be being sent to be sold in a marriage to another group that is supposed to kind of help that king fight against Maddox people. But he captures her, kills her brother. Well, scratch that. She kills her horrible brother right in front of him and proceeds to convince him to not kill her, but take her as his wife, because the line of succession actually goes through the female line in this family of hers, and so by marrying her, he will, you know, be the next like king of her people as well. They'll be like bringing them together. And to kind of convince him of this, she actually gives him the infamous bloody hand job using the blood of her brother that she just murdered as proof of her loyalty, and kind of jacks him off right there. Yep, it happens. It happens. This was a like one of a kind type of thing back then, you know. Really, we'd seen Lothair get some bloody blowjobs, but those were different than the bloody handy that happens here. But we have Yvonne, and she is a very weak woman physically. She's been purposely kept that way. She's been tortured and mistreated and abused by her family. And though we don't know why she was interacting with Maddox's parents, there's definitely more about it than we know. And when she wants to explain to Maddox what she had discussed with his parents, he refuses to hear. In fact, he doesn't trust her. He refuses to be confused and misled by her. And he tells her, if you speak my parents' name, I will cut out your tongue, because I don't need your tongue for you to be my queen and blah, blah, blah. So he's awful, okay? He's very awful in the beginning. And we spend a good part of this book with him just digging his grave deeper and deeper. And we see it all happen. And when we get to the tipping point, when he realizes how wrong he is, he has pretty much alienated this woman away from any want or hope with him. And we do see, though, for all of the like 400 plus pages of him fucking up, he has a pretty epic grovel. And there are some things that he says to her that are still ingrained in my noggin. And so I'm very excited to reread this. So this is a book that you might be ready to throw it at a wall over and over again. But the things that will keep you reading are, number one, the setting is kind of cool. There's dinosaur type creatures and magical beings and dragons and all these crazy things. And also Yvonne. Yvonne was then and is still one of my favorite female characters I've ever read. Ever. Gee, man, I need to remake that list. I remake my book boyfriend list yearly, but I think I need to restructure the female list because she's very high up on this list. She is fan-fucking-tastic, okay? This book, it hasn't been talked about enough lately, and we need it to happen. Now, part of the reason, again, why this hasn't been talked about as much is this was supposed to be a trilogy. This was actually supposed to be a series of 6 books. Not to get too deep into this. This was supposed to be a series of 6 books. And there was going to be 3 and 3, like 2 trilogies put together. They each are about a different couple. So that's the thing. You can read this, read it. I mean, I wouldn't say read it as a standalone, but like you can read this without reading anymore. There's just stuff in the world that, like, there's an HEA for Yvonne and Maddox in this. You will get there. You won't believe it, but you'll get there. And then there's a second book that is not a Breath of Stone. That is a Diana Gabaldon book, but there is a Touch of Stone and Snow, I think is the next one, and that is a different couple in a different part of the world and stuff that's going on. And there's a third book that's supposed to be coming, which is like, I don't even remember what it's called at this point, but it has been pushed and pushed and pushed back and pushed back. And things have been tough in this author's life for a while, so it's kept getting pushed back. And there still isn't a release date. If you see one on Amazon, if you see it on Goodreads, it's not real. That is not a real release date. But if you're in her Facebook group, she has updated that she has a good portion of the book done, and she is feeling her inspiration again, and we're working on it. So there is no date. Any date you see until it comes directly from Milla Vane's Facebook page, it's not true, even if the publishers say it is, because the publishers are never going to remove that listing. They're just going to keep pushing it and pushing it. You know, it's like the Tessa Dare, the Bride Bet that has never happened, or the Maya Banks Highlander book that we're never going to get, but the publishers refuse to remove the listing. So just something to keep in mind. But you can read A Heart of Blood and Ashes and A Touch of Stone and Snow and just be all right. You're going to want that third book like we all do, but you can just read those and it'll be okay. Wow, I spent a lot of time talking about it, but it's worth it. That book's amazing. Okay, now for a lot of these other ones, there isn't quite the same level of epic grovel in some of these, because usually the things the men have done in these aren't as bad as what Maddox does. Like, that's the thing. You have a fantasy romance situation that's bigger than life. You need a grovel that's bigger than life. Some of these guys, they don't have to grovel to quite the same amount, but they do need to make up for time. So let's move on. One that I just read recently was Catching Sparks by Hannah Cohen. Now, this one is one of those quieter type of grovels, in my opinion. And it isn't necessarily the heroine that the hero even needs to grovel to. He really needs to prove to his business and his clients and the people that he works with that he's a changed man. He works for this record company that him and his father co-own, and he's really become very jaded by business and is just alienating people. Him and his father aren't getting along because there is a mistake that his father made, which I won't go into, but his father is still a loving and good man, and he doesn't quite deserve the shit that his son is shoveling his way. He just doesn't, but he can't quite see that right now. And so he actually gets kind of told to take a break from the company for a while, and he ends up going to Cherry Peak, where it's weird to describe. There's people there that we know, and he gets sent there, and he's basically going to work on this ranch for a little bit and cool off and let the publicity die down and just chill. And when he's there, he meets Poppy, Poppy is a dance studio owner. She actually teaches pole dancing and stuff like that as an exercise situation. And she's pretty great. We like her a lot. And they meet when she actually boards her horse at Cherry Peak. And so she's there at the ranch there. And so yeah, we get to know each other that way. They have a one-night stand. They then decide that, okay, instead of a one-night stand, let's have this be like a friends with benefits for a short amount of time, because he's going to be going back to his life, you know, a billionaire record label guy. But they click so well. And through his time there with Poppy and with the horses and with nature and with talks with his family, he really comes to see that the life he was living was not sustainable. And he was basically becoming a Mr. Scrooge, and that it was profit and business over people. And he really has to have a change of heart in that way. So that's kind of why I decided to fit this into a grovel. It's not quite the same. Again, he doesn't need to full on grovel to the heroine, which I know that's probably what a lot of you are looking for. And we do have some of those on here for sure. But I thought this was an interesting one because he really needs to apologize to a lot of people, you know, and he makes good in a big way, which is really great to see. Y'all, I am getting sick. I can feel it. That's part of the reason why I'm filming today, is in case I get sick tomorrow. I want to have filmed a couple videos because I still feel okay. But you know, when you get the tingle back here, it's coming. So I'm trying to drink lots of water. All right, moving on. We have 1% of You by Michelle Gross. This is a pregnant single mom and the grumpy neighbor next door. And this one has him being a dick pretty early on in the book. And the whole rest of the book, I wouldn't say he needs to grovel for the entire book. He does his groveling pretty early on. But it all starts with him being a prick to this woman's little girl. And again, she's a young, pregnant, single mom. She already has one. She's pregnant with another. She's just broken up with her ex because he is a total loser. And she realizes she needs to get her and her kids away from him. But that means she's in a struggle bus because she's living in this small apartment with her and her daughter. And one of the neighbors, who, he doesn't live in the apartment complex, he like lives in a home that's like across from it. And he, in the beginning, has some pretty shitty thoughts about the heroine. And he's calling her like a welfare mom in his head. And he's like, look at her. She's just leeching off the system. Like literally, he has some pretty shitty thoughts. And he as well messes with the little girl by taking the last bag of chips that she wanted and basically like stealing them from her. And our heroine is like, are you really doing this to my daughter? Like, are you really being this much of a jerk? And so she really kind of like takes him to task and just is like, screw you, dude. And he, rightly so, feels very chastened by this and is like, wow, I'm such an ass. And he feels very bad. And so when he runs into them again, the little girl like even calls him out. It's like, oh, you're the chip thief. And he decides he wants to make it up to her. And so he starts bringing her these different like treats every day. And the mom is just like, dude, I don't have time for this. But actually the little girl starts to like him before the mom does. And as he gets to know them through these small interactions, he realizes how wrong he was to make assumptions. And when there are opportunities for him to help this young mom, he takes them. And he eventually starts to fall for all of them, you know, her and her daughter, and eventually the new child that she brings in partway through this book too. And it's really beautiful. I love this so much. It's one of my favorite books that I've read this year, and it didn't quite make a 6-star just because of some other parts of it, but it's so good. I really enjoy it, and it's so sweet. I'd never heard of this author before this book showed up, and I loved it. So again, a bit of a softer grovel from him, but he does do it for quite a while. And she does not just forgive him because he's bringing treats to her daughter. Like, she's like, you said hurtful things and you are an asshole. And he has to get forgiveness before they're ever even friends. You know, like this, he definitely falls first and he has to work for it because she's like, my cup is full. Like, she's trying to graduate from nursing school. Like, she just don't have time for this guy. So I like that. All right, then we have one that is Unbreak My Heart by Nicole Jacqueline. And this is one, y'all, this is going to tear your heart out and stomp on it, okay? This one, we have this girl who she's best friends with her college roommate, and her college roommate actually ended up marrying her foster brother. Yes, it's a very interesting thing. This man became her, he was almost an adult by the time that, not her foster brother, her foster cousin, there we go, sorry, her aunt and uncle actually like adopt him, but they adopt him when he's already like 17 going on 18, so they become his family, but he doesn't actually live with them for too long. And when she comes back from college with her college roommate falls for this guy and they end up married, and they actually have 3 children, and the friend is pregnant with the 4th, and there's a car accident. And our hero, to add another piece to it, he is still full-time military, and so there's a lot of times when he's not home. He, works when he's home, and he will have different tours overseas. And so our girl here, she has been kind of like a co-parenting with her friend. Like, she's called an auntie, and she helps so much. And when this woman dies, it is devastating. The baby lives, but she dies, and so now this man is a widower with 4 kids. And to be honest, he hasn't been around for the raising of these kids all that much. Luckily, he has a great family, and our heroine has a great family, which, get it, they're the same family. You know what I mean? Like, because he was adopted into her family, and so they're all a big part of these kids' lives. And our hero, he really resents the heroine for how close she is with his kids, but also he has no one else really to depend on when all this goes down. And when we skip forward about a year, our heroine is still really helping out with the kids, and it's the anniversary of this death, and the hero goes and just wants to get drunk at a motel and just stay there. And our heroine ends up tracking him down, and feelings bubble over, and they end up having a one-night stand. And he acts like a real dick after this. He thinks that she hunted him down to have sex with him, which is just awful. Like, screw him for thinking that. But this man is just, he's all tangled up in things and guilt and just all of this ickiness. And then we find out that this heroine got pregnant from this one night stand. So now she's raising her dead friend's 4 kids with the father of them, and now that father is also the father of her kid. And guys, he does not handle this well. He does not handle this well. And there is time after time after time where he fucks this up. And particularly around, 60-70%, there's a choice that he makes that may be one of the worst things that I've seen someone who's still like a good guy do. He also still goes on tours of it, so there's times where she is taking care of his kids, and the way that he treats her, not great, okay? But how is this book still 5 stars for me? I don't know, y'all. I don't know how this book was still 5 stars for me, but when he fully embraces how much he's fucked up, the things that he does to prove how much he's thankful for her and how much he loves her and how much he would be absolutely destroyed without her, it moved me. Like, there's so much like grief and guilt and pain all built into their story that I also, even though I just wanted to pummel him, at the same time, I also like had compassion for what he was going through and feelings he was feeling. So even when he's saying and doing things that it's like, dude, you're going to regret this. That's the thing. Because he's a good man, as you watch him incurring this debt of wrong, you know he's going to grovel so hard. Like, you know he's going to grovel so hard. And in my opinion, he does. And I have a feeling that he continued to grovel for many years after, but anyway, it's a really beautiful story, even though it hurts really bad. Like, this one is not for everyone. It's not gonna work for everybody, but yeah. Okay, let's move on to one that's maybe like a little more fun, as it were. I mean, not to say that it's easy or anything, but the hero is definitely a lot quirkier, and he's what you might call like a dumb golden retriever, but he's still lovable and you still want to pet him and keep him around. And we have Against a Wall by Kate C. Wells. And in this case, we have this lovable idiot, and I say that with absolute affection, who has kind of sort of caused a lot of people to bully this woman. Because what was him, like, I'm just going to tell you, like, what was him teasing her as a kid because he liked her actually led to people bullying her, because they would say things that he said with affection and turn them into these barbs that would hurt her. So she hates this guy. Like, she literally hates this man because she blames a lot of the things she's went through on him. And when he starts to have his eyes open to some of this, he actually proposes a fake dating situation with her, which for him, which I do love, like, this is why I love him, he is 1000% meaning this to be him actually wooing her and winning her over, but he knows he has work to do because of how much she dislikes him. So when he convinces her to fake date him so that he can improve her reputation in town, a reputation that he himself has helped ruin, he is planning to woo her through this fake dating. So I liked that part of it. And there is this moment for him when that clicks, like what he's done, what he saw as like sweet picking on her led to this horrible experience she's had in this town. He's devastated by this. He's devastated by it. This also is a book that has a really poor first sexual experience. Like, he kind of fucks up their first time together and has to make up for that. If there's someone who can write awkward interactions, it's Kate C. Wells, okay? She knows how to really twist the awkward knife in your gut. But I appreciated this one. It wasn't a perfect book by any means. And for some people, this hero will just be too dumb for you to handle. And I know. But I liked him. I think I like him so much because I knew men like him in my life. Like, I do know men like this in my life who didn't cause the extreme that this heroine went through. But I've seen guys just be this oblivious and cause problems. So I have some heart for him for sure. Okay, then we, of course, couldn't do a grovel without talking about King of Greed. This is book 3 in the Kings of Sin series. You can read this series out of order if you'd like to. I don't think you'd have too much of a struggle with it by any means. Here is our beautiful couple right here. Love them. Love them. The Davenports here. They have been married for 10 years, and they are like a power couple. Okay, we have Dominic and we have Alessandra, and they have been together since college when our hero had nothing. And through the years, through his business savviness and his determination, he has built them an empire. But along the way, he's lost some of the, passion and spark and attention that he used to give his wife, who is his queen, who all of this is for. Everything he created, he did for her because he was going to live a life that was worthy of her. But in doing so, he lost so much in that quest for more. And when he fucks up and forgets about them going away for the weekend for their 10th anniversary, Alessandra is like, this was the last straw. Like, I cannot be pushed aside and walked all over by this man who claims to love me anymore. And she files for divorce. And the things that Dominic is forced to face, the way he's forced to reevaluate, does he want a company like this if it means he loses the love of his life? They've put off having children for this. They have denied a lot of the things they were even going to do with this money that they made in the pursuit of more. And I think it's a classic tale. Like, we see this a lot in stories. But what I love that she did is this one is a second chance. This is a marriage in trouble, a marriage that's in so much trouble that it actually breaks. And our hero sets out on a journey that he's going to change, that he's going to be different, that he's going to do everything he has to do to win back his queen. And I love that. I love that. Because you can tell he's such a good man, and he did do all of this for her. He just hasn't delegated well or found a way to make it so that he can keep her and actually enjoy everything they've built. But I love this story so much. Okay, then we have one that I actually just read, and it actually comes out next week, okay? I love this author. So there's Yours Truly by Daisy Jane. This is the second book in her Twisted Sister series, and it is another very obsessed young woman. So this one is Ivy. The first one was Dahlia, aka Dolly, and this one is Ivy, and she's a tattoo artist, and she's actually becoming an apprentice at a tattoo shop in town, and her mentor is supposed to be Trace, who has actually recently been like a celebrity tattooist, and he has had a TV show, but things have been tough. He's gotten a bit too much into the alcohol and partying life, and he's realized that it's kind of dangerous and it's not best for him to be living that life anymore. And so his friend actually is the owner of this tattoo shop, and he gets invited to come there and work, and he's supposed to be the mentor to Ivy. Now, Ivy is very interesting. She's definitely the badass sister. She is feisty. She is hardcore. She also knew all about Dolly and her little stalking fetish that she had. And she is like, I have no problem with it, because if there's a man that I wanted, I would do that and more. And though she wants to hate Trace, especially because he really fucks up in the beginning, he's sleeping in late, he's not doing a good job as her mentor, and she thinks he needs to be trained to get in line. And she also is wildly attracted to him, and she kind of hates that she is, because he's such a shit that she's like, why am I so attracted to this absolute asshole? But she thinks there's still enough good in him to deal with. And so one night when he gets so drunk that he can't even keep it together, she puts a chastity cage on his manhood, and she has the only key to it. Now, this is not safe practices for BDSM or a dom-sub relationship, so please don't look to this to be that, okay? This is kinky fun times in a book. But it actually does end up helping him quite a bit, and it's very interesting because she tells him, she's like, you will earn the key to your dick back when you start acting like a good boy. And not just in the sexy good boy, like until you start acting like a good mentor and being a good person, I'm not going to let you have your dick back, because you are misusing it and you're thinking with it, and I'm going to be in charge. So she has some big brass balls on her for doing that. And it's kind of funny because the owner of the shop knows that she did this, because he has security cameras there. And he actually, obviously, like, he agrees, because he's like, you know what? Nothing's been working on my friend. I care about him. Let's see if Ivy can get him in line. And y'all, I just think it's too cheeky. It's too great. So he has some grovel that he needs to do, and not just so that he can get his dick back. There are a lot of relationships that he has soured and ruined by his attitude, and Ivy is going to help him with that. So there you go. This one is great. Also, if you're someone who, if you've never read a book that had chastity cage in it, I highly recommend you give this one a go. This is very interesting, and I love how Daisy Jane takes approaches to types of kink that we wouldn't necessarily enjoy or want to read, and the way that she does it is really interesting. Okay, then we have Love Unwritten by Lauren Asher. This is a recent fave of mine. I've talked about it a whole bunch. I adore it so much. Part of the reason this one is so beloved is because our hero is amazing. He is a full-bodied, fully complex, and interesting man, okay? He is not perfect. He makes a lot of mistakes. He can be a total jackass, but the things that make him great is he is a wonderful father, and he will do anything for his little boy. And he currently has a nanny hired who works with his son, Nico, who's actually going blind. And Ellie is this nanny. Now, Raphael is very jealous of Ellie and of the deep relationship she has with his son. He's jealous of it. He covets it. He wishes that his son would confide in him the way that he does with Ellie. And it is very, like, hard to see happen sometimes, because he says some hurtful things and he thinks some hurtful things. but it's coming from this place of he's so covetous and desirous of time with his son, and he's so heartbroken over what his son is going through and going blind, that it leads him to some bad behavior, including very early on in this book, he finds out some information that Ellie was keeping from him, and he immediately fires her when he finds out. He doesn't stop to listen. He doesn't think about why his son was keeping that a secret or whatever. He has his excuse, his reason to get rid of Ellie. But his son is not okay with it. And they're like, nobody is really okay with it. But it actually makes Ellie start to have to think about, like, why was I letting him push me around so much? Like, I know I love Nico, but why was I letting this man treat me this way, you know, for everything? He's always very grumpy and cruel with her. And so there are a lot of trust issues that Raphael has, but for the sake of his son, he really starts to work through them. And then there's a time in this book, like, this is a long book, this is a slow burn, okay, this one is an epic, all right, this is big. But there's a point in the story where he finally gets his head out of his ass, and the things that he does, the moves that he makes, the promises that he keeps, I loved watching it. And to me, this was a grovel in a way. Like, she actually ends up going on a tour. She's not a singer, but she's a songwriter, and she goes on tour with a performer. And he sends her not flesh flowers. Wow, this isn't Butcher and Blackbird. He sends her fresh flowers in like every city that she's in. And because he's a billionaire, he's able to go visit and do these cute things. So I really, really love it. It's worth a slog to get to it. Highly recommend. Love Unwritten. Okay, then we have one that, okay, this hero doesn't do quite as much full grovel as some of these other ones, but I love putting him in here. And this is Dom by Estee Tilly. And this one involves Val and Dom is in the mafia, and he wants to be a part of the Alliance, which is this alliance of mafia dons that there are. And they have refused him. They don't trust him. And Val is actually the half-sister of King, who is one of these mafia guys. And Dom goes about creating a scenario where he can win Val. Now, he is actually obsessed with Val. He's totally into her, totally loves her. But the way that he goes about winning her is definitely very underhanded, including tricking her into marriage in Vegas. Oopsie. Did that happen? Yes, it did. So yeah, he definitely has to, you know, win her over. And because at first she's so resistant, and he's just like, no, you're going to be my lady. It doesn't matter that I did this to win over your brother. Like, I want you, and I'm going to keep you, and I'm going to make you the happiest woman that there is. So does he do a full grovel normal? No. But the more he learns about what he did and how he have hurt her by doing this, instead of just honestly being honest about what he was looking for, he definitely makes it up to her, and he becomes her most stalwart defender and protector, and just swoon. Okay, just swoon. Over this whole series, these men are all obsessed, and Dom is fantastic. I love it so much. Okay, and then the last one I have, this one's actually another billionaire dad with a nanny thing, and it's If You Give a Single Dad a Nanny by Anne Einerson. This one has a very grumpy dad in the beginning. He is a girl dad. His name is Dylan, and he is an absolute, like, he loves his little girl so much. You know, like, he's the guy who braids hair, who does the ballet, who does all the things. He loves his little girl so much. And when he gets this new neighbor, I think Marlo is her name, yeah, who moves in next door and has this cute little puppy. Look at the cute little puppy right there. She's an artist. She's a bit eccentric. He just immediately dislikes her. She is disorder and chaos, and he is organization and plans, okay? He is a big business guy, and when they're first interacting, he just is like so stuck up and mean to her. Honestly, he's pretty cruel in some of the things he says. But Marlo and his little girl become fast friends, and his little girl, of course, loves her puppy, and he just grudgingly puts up with her. But then when his nanny has to move away abruptly, it becomes the opportunity for Marlo to become the nanny for his little girl. And his whole family is like, she'd be perfect at it. She works from home already. It's not like she'd be giving up anything, and she can still do her art. And then she's right next door, and like, it's perfect. And he's so reluctant. But it becomes clear a lot of the reluctance is that he's very attracted to her. And so this is a case of like, he is a total ass to her in the beginning. And as he starts to learn who she really is and see her full self, he can't help but just fall completely in love with her. And the way that he encourages her dreams and supports her and helps her grow is just beautiful. And watching them become a family is just great. So I put this in a grovel because I think that the way that he repays her after being an ass to her is just so magical. It's so beautiful. I love it so much. So, yes. There you go. All right, everybody, those are some books that have grovels in them. Again, some of them bigger than others. Let me know some of your favorites. Again, I have made 2 other videos with grovels. So if there's a book that I didn't mention that you know that I love, it's probably in one of those. So check those out. I also have links to all of these books down below. So please check them out if you want to get any of them from Amazon. It helps out the channel if you use my links for sure. And there are also Prime days coming up. So very exciting. But anyway, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time. Bye.